My guest today is the longtime Little Rock publisher, Mr. Alan Leveritt, who in 1974, with $200 and a few friends, launched the Arkansas Times magazine, an alternative monthly magazine about political and cultural news in Arkansas. In the 90s, following a 13-year war between the capital city's two newspapers, the liberal Arkansas Gazette and conservative Arkansas Democrat, which resulted in the closing of the Gazette in 1991 and the renaming of the Arkansas Democrat to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Alan decided it was time to take his Arkansas Times monthly newspaper to a weekly publication. Alan said, and I quote, "We wanted to keep the Gazette's voice alive in the community." The Times, as it is simply called, has written a lot in its 5 decades of journalism. To celebrate their 50-year milestone, Alan and his team published an anniversary issue highlighting stories from each decade. And wow, has our country and the way we do business changed. But one thing that has stayed true is the Times' original mission, penned 50 years ago in Alan's maiden voyage column. Alan wrote, "The Times will have 2 main thrusts: news with a focus on investigative reporting and the arts." Today, we're going to get folklore, stories that Alan has lived through and reported on from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We will learn how the staff's investigative reporting of police corruption in Little Rock led to the burning of their building in the 80s. We will talk about the Tony Alamo cult leader's fall from grace and how the publishing industry has changed since the inception of the internet. And finally, when Alan is not trying to change the world or educate us, he is a third generation farmer. It is with great pleasure I welcome to the table my friend, the super ambitious, well-read, community-minded, hard-working man and farmer, Mr. Alan Leveritt. Woo! You didn't know you were so impressive, did you?
I didn't know I was that important. Yes, ma'am. Hello, Kerry.
Hey, baby. So you were my 34th guest.
Uh-huh.
This show is like 418. So
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Episodes or guests?
Episodes.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Because we replace the guests.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly how many guests, probably half of those.
At least, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you and I were together
At KABF.
at KABF, and it was live.
Yeah.
Today we pre-record, but we did it live back then. And today I want to tell our listeners, I went back and listened to our interview. It's really good.
Well, good.
The recording quality is not as good as it is today because we have, better technicians. KABF is a wonderful station, but
Yeah.
it's community.
Yeah.
It's
And it was
community.
live. Yeah.
And they're the only people that would let me on because I had no track record of any kind.
God
I
bless
just called up
KABF.
John Kane and said, "Hey, can I come on the radio for an hour every day?" And he was like, "Okay, whatever." Love that man. But anyway, we have so much to talk about and so little time. For the budding entrepreneurs tuning in, tell our listeners about your $200 startup and how you paid your employees with creative stock options. I think this is encouraging.
Well, we were young, and I don't recommend doing it this way, but that was the only way we could do it. And Jim Bell at Publishers Bookshop, was a friend of mine. I went to him and I said, "Jim, I got this great magazine idea I want to do. We're selling stock." And he wrote me a check for $200. And I thought, well, this is going to be really easy. And that was the last check I got. And so that was how we determined what our starting capital was going to be. Years later, I was talking to Jim, and he told me that when he wrote that check and he filled out his check stub, he wrote donation instead of investment because he said he never expected to see his money again.
Did you pay him back?
Oh, he got a great return on his investment.
He got a stock option.
Yeah, well, he owned stock.
Did you buy everybody out that you gave stock to?
No. There's still some of the
Olivia Farrell, was she in there?
Livy was not there until probably 3 years later, and so she bought one of the original stockholders. She bought their stock, but no, I mean, there's a couple of people that got close to $250,000 for their stock.
What?
Yeah, but
Where was I? I should have been putting money in that.
But they worked for. We worked for nothing.
Yeah.
And
you were passionate.
Well, we were passionate, but it was, we worked for 3.5 years. You had the only thing that only thing you had to have to work at the Times in 1974, 75, 76 was another means of support.
Oh, I got you.
Okay.
That's how you start a small business.
Yeah. And so I drove a yellow cab. David washed dishes at an Iranian restaurant, and you just did what you needed to do.
You drove a yellow cab.
It was like getting an MBA in Little Rock. I mean, because you drive at night. Some cities cabs are ridden by rich people. Some cities cabs are ridden by poor people. In Little Rock, it's poor people that couldn't afford a car. And it was at night. And so most of your time was spent in the east end or the south part of the city. And I saw another side of life that I'd never seen. I grew up in the suburbs, so I didn't know anything.
Is that what changed you from your conservative views to a liberal views?
That's what started.
Because you were born conservative.
Well, I was a big Ayn Rand advocate.
A what?
Ayn Rand. Mm-hmm. She was a proponent of
Atlas Shrugged.
Atlas Shrugged. All great. Actually, I thoroughly. I mean, when I started the Times, because I had not Atlas Shrugged. What was the other one? Fountainhead.
Yeah.
And
this is why we have Gray.
Good. Yeah, I know. He
fills in all my sentences.
Yeah. Gray's my memory.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for, guys.
Yeah. So it went back and reread Atlas Shrugged for the Fountainhead for the second time. And I thought, well, why am I still in school? So I dropped out my senior year at UALR to start the Times. And but driving a cab was fascinating.
So you didn't graduate from college?
No.
Do you know how many people we interview that did not graduate from college? Entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird, actually. It's almost like a prerequisite. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, get out of college. Spend that money on your startup.
It was just like you. It provides an alternate route for people who couldn't take the sort of typical route.
Alan, do you remember what you said in our interview last time?
I've slipped since then. No.
Yeah. Well, it was like what? 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So you said that I said something about, could people go into the business and do a startup like you did now? And you said, absolutely. It's even easier now because you have the internet. You can start writing and you could do all this stuff. And you said, if they don't go to college, don't buy a house, and don't have children, they can invest in their career.
Well, you got to be able to live poor. You got to live frugally. And you can't, if you've, think about student debt. I've been kind of following this thing with Biden trying to erase the student debt. Back then, I could go to UALR for $500 a semester, and I had a $250 scholarship. So, and it was hard to get that money. But now these kids, they graduate, they got thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. Well, I couldn't have started the Times. I'd had to get a real job, if back then. But, I didn't have any debt, so I was okay.
Well, and the government gave you really low interest on the money you did borrow back then. And then I think it was George W. who changed it, tied it to the stock market. And now the interest on that money is a lot more than it used to be when you were young.
Yeah, I'm not even sure they had student loans in 1970.
They'd had it when my husband was going.
Okay.
He graduated in the 80s, early 80s. So they had some kind of loan that he could get with really low interest rate, which was easy to pay back or easier. All right. The other interesting thing I think about starting up a business is right off the bat, you're on the verge of bankruptcy. And so you started a paper because you like to write. But you quickly said,
couldn't find anybody to sell ads. Had this one guy, because we were straight commission, right. So this one guy came in and he was going to sell ads for us, and he was awful. But anyway, he had this slick back hair, just full of Brill cream, and
nobody knows what Brill cream is, honey.
He would leave one time. So he was in the office, and we had these wooden walls in this old little railroad house down on 2nd Street, and he leaned back and put his head against the wall. Then he popped back up, and he left a big grease spot on the wall. And I thought, this is who we are, this is it. But anyway, so I made a deal. Bill Terry was a very talented, mercurial journalist who had gotten fired from the Democrat. And I went to Bill, and I'd known Bill. I'd worked at the Democrat right out of high school. And I went to Bill. I said, Bill, listen, you be the editor. and I'm going to see if I can sell an ad. And I went down to the Shack Barbecue down on 3rd and Victory. And I went in there and I sold a 2/3 page ad. And I thought, Dad, gummit, that's something. And I came back up to Bill and I said, Bill, you're the editor and I'm now the ad manager. And so that was the.
You're still selling, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I still sell every
You
day.
come see me.
Yeah.
You come to see me. I'm like, Alan, what are you doing here? You own the paper. You're like, well, I'm the best salesman we got. You know, you got to work on the business, not in the business. That's a great tip. Yeah. Is the catfish still your mascot?
Absolutely.
And why the catfish of all the ugly fishes out there?
Because it is indigenous. It is absolutely the most vivid indigenous symbol of Arkansas. Scrappy, bottom feeder. No, yeah. Oh. But you know, yeah, we feed on bottom feeders. I guess that's the definition of investigative reporting. But anyway,
your heart is in investigative reporting. That is your love of reporting.
But you know, there's more to it than that, though, because Arkansas is such a rich culture. It's so interesting. It's in, you know, just the indigenous culture that we have. Think about music. You got blues music. You got hill music up in the Ozarks and everything, and just to be able to take 50 years and just, you know, go through all that, from the food, the music, the accents, the language. It's just, I mean, why would you, it's the best job in the world. Why would anyone else why would you want to do anything else? It could occupy a lifetime, and it has for me. And when we were graduating from college or leaving college, it was like, God, we just thought Arkansas was the most fascinating place we'd ever seen. And,
I'm surprised because most people leave college and go, I want to get out of Arkansas.
Well, I know, and I didn't have that. I worked so hard to get back to Arkansas that I wasn't about to leave it. So, yeah.
I'm not sure the publishing business has changed a lot since 1974 when you started. And most papers all over the country have closed. And I'm not sure the citizens of Arkansas realize how lucky we were to have 2 newspapers still owned and operated today by people that live in the city.
That's right.
The Democrat Gazette is owned by the Husbands, and the Arkansas Times is owned by you. The Spectrum is closed. The Free Press is closed. The Gazette has closed. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure people realize how lucky we are to not have somebody in New York writing our articles.
Right. No, the reason that we have as good a daily newspaper as we have is because it's locally owned. And yeah. I believe that a person should not own a newspaper if they don't live in that city. You should not own it. If you don't live there, go find something else to do. Start a newspaper in your own city.
You used to not be able to have multiple newspapers, right? Because they didn't want to start the propaganda that we have today. One voice could be too loud.
No? You couldn't own multiple outlets in the same market. So you couldn't own like 2 TV stations and the newspaper in the same market. But
you can now.
Yeah, actually, I think you can. A lot of that's gone away. But no, back then, we had chain newspapers all over the country, and as so long as. For a long time, the newspaper business was fat and happy. They'd make 30% profit margins. I never did, but it was done. And so everybody wanted to own a chain of newspapers. And there was money there to finance it. Now there's not. We got we got Gannett, which is just a blight on journalism. And if the Democrat had lost the newspaper war, it'd be a sorry-ass newspaper today because Gannett would.
Does Gannett own all the newspapers in America or something?
They own a lot. But actually, Gannett is now, Gannett is Gatehouse. Gatehouse bought Gannett but changed their name to Gannett because Gatehouse is an abomination. It's a terrible, terrible journalistic organization. They just gut the newsrooms to make profit. It's an awful organization. Gannett had a better reputation than Gatehouse did, so when Gatehouse bought Gannett, they took the Gannett.
So it's a rag. Is that what they call a rag?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. This is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Arkansas Times founder, Mr. Alan Leveritt. We're fixing to get into some good investigative reporting stories. Still to come, the 70s and 80s. You won't believe how much our culture has changed, and yet it is still the same. The 90s and 2000s, we saw the .com boom, and Bill Clinton was elected president. We'll be right back. Hey, kids, will y'all help me decorate for the holidays?
You can decorate for Christmas or Halloween. Boo!
I can help you decorate for Thanksgiving.
Hey, Mom, try this light-up headless snowman.
Flagandbanner.com's gift shop has everything you need for Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas decor. Did I mention Christmas? We have so many decorations for Christmas. Drop by our showroom in downtown Little Rock or shop online at flagandbanner.com.
We're speaking today with Arkansas Times founder, Mr. Alan Leveritt, who is celebrating the paper's 50 years in business. In the 70s, you were ahead of your time. Your wife, I think she was your wife at the time, Mara Leveritt, wrote an article called Up and Coming Homegrown Grassers. And your other writer, Brian, wrote, marijuana is not the stigma in Little Rock that it was. This is the 70s. The bigger it gets, the more loose it's going to get. He went on to say he didn't want marijuana to fall under the control of existing agencies like those handling alcohol and tobacco because, and I quote, there's too much graft and corruption there. I had to look up what graft meant. It means illegal means.
Right, yeah.
I didn't know that. So
I think the medical marijuana is a real step in the right direction
Yes.
in terms of making it legal. It's really unfortunate what's getting ready to happen.
what's that?
Well, there was a new ballot initiative that passed, or that got the required number of signatures, but there was just a ridiculous technicality about who signed the paper on one day, and it had never been a problem on any other ballot initiatives for the last decades, but the Attorney General and the Governor and the Secretary of State didn't want a loosening of the marijuana medical rules. So they came up with a novel new interpretation. It was appealed to the Supreme Court, Arkansas Supreme Court, and 2 justices recused themselves, and the governor has appointed 2 absolute enemies of legalized or medical marijuana. And so that's going to go to the Arkansas Supreme Court.
And then what happened? You mean they're going to get rid of it completely?
No. But
But not open it to everybody.
Well, what there was, it was going to be a constitutional amendment that basically, instead of saying that your doctor has to say that you need this, a pharmacist, a nurse, other medical professionals could do it. Instead of having to pay $250 every year to get your card, it was good for 3 years. Just made it a whole lot more. You could grow you can grow, I think, 7 or 14 plants at home, which right now you cannot grow it at home. You have to go through these dispensaries. So I think it was an improvement. But, the governor doesn't want this to happen. And so it just means that it's not going to happen. And
because she has all the power.
She does have the power, yeah.
I've never seen a governor with so much power.
Well, it's not just her, but it's Tim
she's
Griffin.
She's got a really good, strong team around her that,
They're all carpetbaggers. Every damn
none
one
of them are from here? Is that what you mean?
Very few of them. I mean, they're her public affairs people, the Secretary of Education. Now, the economic development, yes, and that was a really, really good hire. And but no, so many of these people, I think, they figured that she's on her way to Washington at some point, so they attach themselves. They come from Florida, wherever they are, New Mexico, and they attach themselves to her, and then that's their direct shot to Washington.
Carpetbaggers. I hadn't heard that term in a long time. Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you, and everybody knows this, I blog about it, I have melanoma cancer, and the medicine makes me nauseous, and I am so glad it's legal.
Yeah.
I mean, I am so glad it's legal.
Well, I have a friend, and she has to go in for dialysis every day. And so, we were getting started in this.
All of us old hippies did good.
Yeah. And I said, does this really do you? Does medical marijuana, she has a medical marijuana card. And I said, does this really help you? And she says, well, it's not going to cure me, but I've been able to get off of 2 opioid prescriptions, using marijuana. Well, okay, that's an improvement.
And it doesn't have it doesn't hurt your stomach. It doesn't hurt your liver. It doesn't hurt it just goes right through you where, anyway, enough of that. It's fun to compare and contrast now and then because a lot of things are so much different when I read. But a lot of things are the same, like the political date from the 70s is still now the subject of separation of state and religion. I mean, it's still going on from 50 years ago.
It's gotten worse. I mean, now we're funding religious schools with taxpayer money. I mean, that would never have happened in the 1970s. And I mean, this whole idea of Christian nationalism that America is a Christian state, Arkansas is a Christian state, and therefore there's no separation between the church and the state. And
isn't that why America was founded? Is on a separation of church and state?
well, I think a lot of the founders came out of the 30 years wars, which was
Religious.
Religious, terrible, all through Europe, and they were determined not to make that mistake again. And so when they started, some of those early states started, putting religious identification to their state. The new United States decided that no, they were not going to repeat the errors of Europe and the conflicts there, and they were going to separate the coercive power of government and religion.
Well, right now, Israel and Gaza is a religious war. Is it not?
Yes.
Isn't so many of the wars that we fight are over religion?
It is, but they're not. They're fighting over land.
Oh, okay.
I think the Palestinians, the settlers coming in and taking over more and more of the Palestinian land. And then during the various wars early in the century, in the 20th century, that land was never returned back to the farmers that originally had it. And that creates a really, really deep and long-standing scar that people don't forget.
Yeah. White flight, that was in your 70s section of your magazine, of your 50-year anniversary issue. But really, white flight was the 60s, not the 70s, wasn't it?
Well, the downtown was depopulating. In 1974, our first cover was the white flight of the downtown churches. So all the big churches downtown were moving out west, out of Rodney Parham and different places, and kind of hollowing out downtown. Now, that's something that really has improved is our downtown Little Rock. It's not perfect. It's not there all the way. But I remember, North Little Rock, Argenta, the Joint, which is a comedy club. They do skits. They had one of their first skits was this couple. They're coming down Interstate 40 cross country. They have a car accident and they die. And they go up to heaven, man and the wife, and they go to St. Peter, and St. Peter motions the woman to come on through. She's good to go. And her husband starts to follow her, and he stops. St. Peter says, no, wait a minute. Yeah, we got some issues here. And he's looking and says, I'm afraid you're going to have to go to purgatory for a while. And the husband says, purgatory? Where's purgatory? And he says, downtown North Little Rock, 1985.
That's not right.
It was.
But it's not anymore.
No, it's not anymore.
No.
I think the only functioning business was, I think it was the Rialto Theater. It was soft porn. And that was, that was the only thing that was functioning. And now they've done such a fabulous job in Argenta. And they've done a real good job in moving downtown Little Rock forward too, I think.
Yeah. I feel very safe in downtown North Little Rock.
Yeah.
Safer than I do in downtown Little Rock, actually.
Yeah, in some places.
In some places. Restaurants. You talk a lot in your magazine about restaurants, catfish, barbecue. What do you think about it used to be Italian on every corner. Now it's Mexican food on every corner.
It's a blessing because, back then we only had one or two Mexican restaurants, and they were run by Arkies. And then now we have so many Hispanic people that have moved in. We're getting some really good food.
So if people want to pick up the magazine, they can read some Arkansas tales from the poet Miller Williams, the novelist Donald Harrington, the historian D. Brown. I think that's really neat.
Charles Portis. Yeah.
Charles Portis. Yeah. Wow. You have had some impressive writers.
We've always had better writers than we could afford. And because we also had Max Brantley.
Oh, yeah.
John Brummett was there. Mike Trimble, Ernie Dumas.
Yeah.
Great people. And George Fisher.
Yeah.
And I think one reason is because we got out of their way and let those writers write and those editors edit. And that's...
And Bill Terry. Did you say Mike Trimble?
Yeah.
Bob Lancaster?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, Lancaster was incredible.
Great. So let's talk about the 80s. Ladare. This is where I think the world has changed so much, and not for the better. But I realize we've got DWIs now, and nobody can go out partying anymore, and that's probably a good thing. There's more traffic on the road. It's all of that. But Gray's looking at me like, "What is the Ladare?"
I don't remember this.
Tell them what the Ladare is.
It's a male strip thing. So,
for girls.
Yes,
for girls, yeah. So the women would
it was
go
down by the river.
Yeah, by the
Yes.
disco.
I read the review in the Times online, and it was hilarious. I never knew that place existed.
the women would just have more fun.
Chippendales was big.
It was Chippendales kind of deal.
Yeah.
And so that was a thing for the 80s.
The write-up was by itself was hilarious. Never mind the place.
So I want to tell the readers that if you do go online, because this edition is now old news, because you're off. How often do you publish?
Every month.
Yeah, so it's old news now, and but if you go online, you can still read that edition.
Well, we've been taking each decade and online. It's arctimes.com, ARKTIMES.com, and you can read all kinds of stuff and a lot of breaking news as well.
I am always upset with how conservative we are getting and how the young women, and even men don't realize how far we've come since the 70s, that they don't realize, and I harp on this all the time to nauseum, but they don't realize how much we fought to have sexual equality.
Abortion rights,
sexual equality, birth control, health care, and then now we're becoming so conservative that, you can't tell a dirty joke without losing your job. And I mean, I understand, but.
Yeah. But, we say that, and certainly our elected representatives are extremely conservative. But I think that if the abortion rights amendment had made the ballot, and again, it had the required number of signatures, they threw it out on just the most arcane technicality.
Up technicality.
Yeah, I think it would have passed easily. And that's what all their polls showed as well. So, it's people are concerned. But also you got to remember that in central Arkansas, it is a blue island in a red state. French Hill has never carried Pulaski County. A Republican presidential candidate has never carried Pulaski County.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Hillary carried Pulaski County. Obama carried Pulaski County. Biden, and I'm sure Harris will as well. Now, the rest of the state's a different story.
What were the 80s? This is when Bill was Governor Clinton, and you had an article in there called "The Frenemies of Bill." I like that.
Yeah, he was. He was controversial amongst a lot of people, and I liked. We very generally supported Clinton. We certainly found issues, but I thought Clinton was a good governor, and wish he was governor again. So
he's smart.
He's smart, and he's a politician,
and he's hardworking,
and he's also moderate. And that's
he's moderate. He is moderate. People think he's liberal, but he's really moderate.
I long for Asa Hutchinson. And
I know.
I never thought I would say that. So
Asa was he didn't have another agenda. It's when our governors have another agenda that I think
any politician,
has another agenda that they sometimes don't vote for the people. They vote for their career. I love this quote in your thing that said, because of his age, he was young when he was governor, and he lost his second run at governorship to Frank White. And one of the guys you were having dinner with said, "I just can't get used to having a governor who has zits."
Well, he was a young man.
He was young. Okay. Say McIntosh. I mean, nut job that got a lot done.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he was bipolar or something. I mean, what would his ADHD? I mean, the guy had more energy than anybody. Tell our listeners about Say McIntosh.
Say McIntosh was a restaurateur and an activist.
Boy, was he an activist.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of his activism, like one of the things he would do, he'd go down to Central High School and he'd just pick up trash, around the campus and on the streets and everything. And then he would go after people for not doing it themselves. And
we need him again today.
Well, yeah. Now, Say didn't always pay his bills, but he also it's in the Mosaic Templars. is either getting ready to have, I think they're getting ready to have their Say It Ain't Say. Say It Ain't Says, and it's a sweet potato pie contest, and so it's a competition to see who's got the. Now that Say's not around to make sweet potato pies anymore.
Yeah, that was what he was known for. The sweet potato. He was called the Sweet Potato King.
The Sweet Potato Pie King. He sure is.
Yeah. He was an erratic political provocateur.
He was a provocateur.
Nobody was above the fray with him. I mean, he could do anything.
Well, he was always on Clinton and Clinton's picadillos. Yeah.
He threw a barbecue for the KKK. He's a black guy.
Yeah.
Every time you come out, you come out to your car, there'd be a flyer under your windshield. I mean, and one side would be the menu of his restaurant, and the other side would be a rant.
Oh, yeah.
We need people like that
I kind of love it.
Yeah, he was on the cover of the Arkansas Times.
He tried to stop black crime on black crime. Wasn't he the one that put up crosses that showed all the young black boys getting killed?
17th and Martin Luther King. Back then it was High Street, I believe.
Yeah.
And they had every time there'd be a killing, a black on black killing, then he would put a cross out there.
Again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's still the same issue.
Yeah.
Black crime on black crime. How do you ever get it to stop? So, okay, we got to talk about the burning of your building, the police corruption investigation that led to an arson burning down your Times building.
So the Little Rock Police Department in the 70s under Chief Weeks was very corrupt. Forrest Parkman, who was a major, one of the top officials, he killed people.
Were you afraid?
No, I wasn't. Not really. I didn't. Bill Terry was afraid, our editor. He came out one day and they had literally picked up his car and moved it about 12 feet. Yeah, just picked it up and moved it. And
just to mess with him.
Yeah. Bill was Bill was brave. And the way I say he was brave, he was terrified and he kept writing the stories. He wasn't stupid. He knew that he was at risk. And, but we had an informant within the police department that Bill had a direct line to, so he was getting a lot of tips and everything. And what started out was the assistant chief of police, Pierce, they wanted to get Jim Guy Tucker. Jim Guy Tucker had been prosecuting attorney, and there was all these rumors back at the time that Jim Guy Tucker smoked dope at parties.
He probably did.
Who knows?
It was the 90s.
I never got invited to any of those parties. but anyway, so what they did, this guy, this assistant chief of police, Little Rock's assistant chief, hires a guy named Larry Case, who's a thug, and he hires him to plant dope behind the front seat of Jim Guy Tucker's county prosecuting attorney's vehicle. Now, Jim Guy Tucker had moved on to be an attorney general by this time, but this is back then.
So who put the dope behind his chair?
Larry Case was going to do it.
And that's works for the cops?
He is a thug that was hired by the cops.
Oh, I got you.
But what Pierce didn't know and should have known was that Case was always wired. When he would go grocery shopping, he would record the transaction at the checkout counter, okay? Everything he did 24 hours a day, he recorded it, okay? And so this transaction with the assistant chief was recorded. And we heard that there was a tape. And we didn't know Larry Case. So Arlen Fields, who was a great reporter, he goes out there and he starts trying to find Larry Case, and he finds him. And Larry Case says, yeah, I'll give you the tapes for $500. Well, he might as well said $50,000. I mean, the whole damn company was founded on 200, and this guy wants 500, But I went to a guy that I knew, a friend, and I told him what the story was. And he didn't say much. He said, I want you to go park at the Worthen Bank, Bank branch on Cross Street, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and wait. So I was driving a cab that day. So I went and I pulled my cab up there and rolled down the windows, and I'm waiting. Car pulls up, guy gets out, goes into the bank, comes back. And as he's walking into his car, this envelope just flips through my window, and it's a bank envelope with 5 $100 bills in it. And so we gave that to Arlen. Arlen gave it to Case and got the tapes. And so we were getting ready to shut down because we were so disappointed. This is our first year. we were so disappointed in our journalism. I was the editor, and I was not very skilled. And but anyway, we got that story. The assistant chief had to resign, and we thought, well, we finally did something right.
You ran that story in the magazine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he had to resign because of your story.
Yeah. And so, we said, well, we can do something. We were pretty discouraged. And you don't want to, and when you're poor, poverty breeds conflict. I don't care if it's in a family or if it's in a business.
Yeah.
If you don't have any money, every little thing is a crisis.
Yeah.
And so, we fed, okay, so we reorganized ourselves and went forward, and here we are today. But that was because of that story. But anyway, the cops were just horribly corrupt. They were at war with what they called the Dixie Mafia, Harry Hastings. I could use the whole period here talking about those stories.
So how did they burn your building down?
We don't know who did it.
What happened? You just got a call in the middle of the night, your building's on fire? From the police, hey, we just set fire to your building.
Well, we had been losing our racks. Someone was stealing our racks every
your
night.
Boxes that you had your stuff in.
And we couldn't, the news distributor, Siebert's at the time, would not distribute our magazines. Sig Siebert said we were communist. And Ayn Rand, communist. And so what we did, we went to some lawyers, liberal lawyers in town. We said, look, these racks cost $50. If you'll give us $50, we'll buy that rack. We'll tell you where your rack is, and you will get 100% of the quarters that go into that rack until you get your $50 back plus 10%. Well, we had their $50 back in 3 months. And so this is how we built our rack network. Mm-hmm. And so then they start disappearing. And we don't have any racks. We don't have a magazine.
Right.
And so we start sitting out there. We start staking out our racks at night. And Buster Corley, who eventually became Busters, which eventually became Dave and Buster's. Uh-huh. Buster Corley was running TGI Fridays at the time, and we had a rack at the Shack Barbecue. And so Buster let me sit in the foyer with a crowbar. And I would sit there at night watching my rack. My rack. And fortunately, they never stole my rack, because 3 days later, I get a knock on my door at 11 o'clock at night. I'm asleep, and it's my ad director, Keith Weinstein. And he says, they burned us down. And I look out the door. I'm down at 21st and Spring. And I look, and the whole night sky is alight. And it's our offices burning down.
What corner were they on?
They were at Cross and
Third?
Second. It's a vacant lot today. It's for sale, by the way, if you want to buy it. There's this beautiful old mansion that we had been able to rent, and we had sublet it to a couple of little small one-man ad agencies. We were really proud of it. Anyway, burns to the ground. And so 2 days later, I get a call from the police, said, we found your racks. I said, great, where'd you find the racks? He said, down on the river. They're on a boat ramp. And I said, well, I'll be down there to get them. And he says, don't bother. They've been blown to pieces. Someone just took a shotgun and just destroyed them. So I'm kind of glad I did with my crowbar. So never bring a crowbar to a gunfight.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'm telling you, people don't realize what a Wild West it used to be back in the old days.
Yes, it had its moments.
It did.
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, I'm sorry. I liked it. I like the free wielding. All right. Let's see if we've got something else. Well, I guess it's a great time to take a break after that story. That's a good story right there. How long did it take before the police quit being corrupt, before they got cleaned up? Or are they still?
They got rid of Weeks, and I can't remember the guy that took over. And I think he got set up. He was in the, drugstore.
The pharmacy. Is that the guy that got set up that they found dead in his garage? That they said he killed himself, but he didn't kill himself? Okay, so. You got to tell that story.
Yeah, well, I just don't remember it well enough to tell. But he took over. He took over from Weeks. And then that whole regime sort of gradually went away as far as I could tell.
Well, he was fixing to have to tell. So you're saying that the police chief that they found shot in his car, in his garage, self-inflicted wounds supposedly, was Weeks?
No. The Weeks' successor. The guy that took over from Weeks. If I'm
they
not missing
definitely
somebody.
set him up. Bryce.
Yeah, Bryce. Yeah, exactly. The
Bryce Drugstore.
Is it Bryce Drugstore? Yeah, and he was a city director. The owner was a city director. He was Weeks's best friend, and he had an affair with Weeks's wife, and they broke the.
So they had a camera on the cash register, and they showed Weeks' successor taking money out of the drawer, put it on the news for everybody to see. Everybody's like, "Oh, the new police chief is stealing."
These guys were all, I mean, they did that all the time. I mean,
that was a normal behavior. Yeah.
That wasn't unusual. The city director didn't care. But yeah, he this time they cared for some reason.
Well, they just set him up on the news. They made him look really bad. A week later, they found him shot in the head in his garage. Everybody knew that he didn't do that.
Ugly.
He might have. I mean, God, think about what he went through in terms of public humiliation.
Right.
And he was a straight shooter.
I know. Well, you'd have fought back. You're a policeman. You got to, I mean, I don't know. All right. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Arkansas Times founder, Mr. Alan Leveritt. If you think this is a good interview, you got to go back and listen to our other interview. There's some encouraging words in it too. And we're not going to go over the stuff we went over in that interview because that would be redundant. So you got to go back and listen to that one too. It's not quite as good of a audio recording, but it's still got a lot of content. When we come back, we have more folklore. We got to do the 90s still. We got to do the 2000s. We got to talk about surviving the dot-com boom and Bill Clinton being elected president. We'll be right back.
Hey, cool cats. You been jonesing for a new flag? Burn rubber and come visit us in downtown Little Rock. Hang loose. We've got what you need. This flagpole kit has all the bells and whistles. I really dig these hats. Groovy. Far out. Reusable tote bags. Don't be a square. Shop online at flagandbanner.com. Need to talk to a real person? Drop a dime and give us a call. We're the experts. Peace out, man.
We're speaking today with Arkansas Times founder, Mr. Alan Leveritt, who is celebrating the papers. Or is it a magazine?
It's a magazine.
Oh, the magazine.
And a website.
And a website. Oh, that's right. For 50 years in business. That is no easy accomplishment because every decade in business, having also been in business 50 years, is hugely different. I talk about,
so different.
Door-to-door sales versus, internet sales versus, mail order sales. I mean, it just changes constantly. And you have been very good. All the other papers, the Spectrum, the Free Press, they're gone.
Yeah.
There's just the two of you left.
Well, you got to look at like all over Arkansas. We've had 4,000 newspapers shut down across the country.
4,000.
Yeah, and it's because you have Google and Facebook have sucked up 70% of the local ad dollars that used to go to radio, television, and newspaper in a local market. So you think about any business. You take a business that maybe you're familiar with as a listener, and if 70% of the money disappeared from that marketplace that business serves, you would have to either go out of business or come up with some real imaginative ways to stay in business. And that's been the challenge in the publishing business, particularly since 2007, but even before then. But 2007, most newspapers never recovered from that dot-com bust, and then when everything went south.
And you know what bothers me a little bit about the newspaper, about the dot-com and everybody getting all their information? I heard With Walker at your last Rotary speech get up and say, and I came home and told Gray this, there's 7 billion people on the planet.
Yeah,
or there's 8 billion people on the planet.
6 billion iPhones.
He said 7, I think.
Something like
he
that.
made it imply like every single person, almost every person on the planet has an iPhone.
Homeless people have cell phones.
Has a cell phone.
So that completely disrupted that old business model. And fortunately, Max Brantley had gotten us into the internet early because he was an old daily newspaper guy. He'd been the political editor at the Gazette. And he was our editor now, and he wanted to get back into the daily newspaper business, and the way to do that was on the internet because every day he'd get in there and he'd post. Max would be up there like some kind of Bond daddy, man. He'd be up at the front of the room and he'd have his headphones and all that kind of stuff, and the phone would just ring. It was all of Max's contacts at state government, and he'd be calling. And And it was amazing to watch him.
He retired last year, didn't he?
He did. And
what are you doing to fill his gap?
Well, we it's sort of like you got to hire 3 people to fill Max's gap. But I'll tell you, the Times has grown from 5 editorial people 2.5 years ago to 11 today, and we're getting ready to hire a 12th. And so we have started a philanthropic effort because the Times is, a lot of people, they see the Times as the voice of the blue community in a red state. And if you're the spokesman for a significant part of the state that feels disenfranchised, that feels somewhat under siege perhaps from the right, then those people very often look to some place like the Times to give their support and thank goodness, some of their money. And so we've really benefited from that. But what we've done, we've taken 100% of the donations that we've gotten, and we've applied it towards hiring more writers, more reporters, getting more reporters on the street, so that we can make up for this loss of coverage that has happened because of all these newspapers shutting down.
So how can you take money did you start a nonprofit?
No, you can, we have a fiscal agent. So you can, like, we're Arkansas Community Foundation.
Okay.
All right. You can, they're not our fiscal agent, but you can donate that money. You can tag it for the Arkansas Times, give it to the Arkansas Community Foundation.
And they're a 501c3.
Yes. And then you get your tax deduction. And then they call us and say, come get your check. And they take 2% or something.
Everybody can do that without starting their own 501c3?
Right.
You mean if you want to take donations, you go to, what's the name of this place again?
Arkansas Community Foundation.
And they will facilitate?
They will facilitate that. They'll get the money to where you want it to go. And you'll, by going through the ACF. And see, they didn't used to do this, but the Community Foundation in Charleston, South Carolina started a journalism project because journalism is dying in this country. And so they thought it was really important to get money to come up with new revenue streams for journalism, local journalism. And so they went through the IRS, did their due diligence, and then they went to the other community foundations. And we'd already been to ours, and they said, well, we can't do that. Well, Charleston came in and said, no, here's how you do it. And they called us and said, we need to talk to you because we've got a way to help now. So, and
do they help politicians? If you want to run for political office, can you go through them? You don't know.
I doubt. No, that's but even the Democrat Gazette, you can donate through the Arkansas Community Foundation for Walter Hussman.
I just read that in his paper. He said we're making donations. Did he get that idea from you? Do y'all just feed off each other's ideas all the time?
I have no idea. I'm not inside Walter's head.
Are you sure? In 1990, the newspaper war of 13 years is over. Mm-hmm. We're in the 90s now, listeners. Mm-hmm. They have been fighting for 13 years. The Gazette is a morning paper like it is today. A lot of people don't know there used to be 2 papers here. And it would come in the morning, and then in the afternoons, all the kids after school would throw the Democrat paper. And so you either took the afternoon paper, or you took the morning paper, or you took both. Morning paper, the Gazette, was liberal, and the afternoon paper, the Democrat, was not. And I interviewed Hussman, and he tells, if anybody wants to go listen to how he did it through free advertisings in the classifieds, he is a genius. That guy is smart. Mm-hmm. Just like you, Alan. Mm-hmm. So he outlasts the Gazette. He just, because he's got deep pockets. And
he was determined.
And he was determined. He wanted to be, they own cable companies. They wanted a bunch of stuff. So he goes, and Gannett finally sells it to him. We get today the Arkansas Democrat Gazette that they're still running. But you are upset because you have lost the liberal voice. Mm-hmm. And so you make a big decision in 1991 to start, you changed from a monthly paper to
we were a monthly magazine just like this. And Mara, my wife, I was sitting there talking to her one day, and I said, there ought to be something we can do because all these guys, George Fisher is going to be out of work. Are you kidding me?
So many people.
Yeah. And she said, why don't we take the Times and go from monthly to a weekly newspaper, like an alternative weekly newspaper, which was another niche that was very popular at the time. And so we went out and raised $680,000. That was the first cash infusion since 1974.
Really?
But we raised $680,000 from 24 local business people and took the magazine from monthly to weekly and hired the senior editorial staff of the Arkansas Gazette as they were hitting the streets. And that's when Ernie and Max and George Fisher and Doug Smith and all these people came in.
Very talented.
Yeah. And so we did that for the next 25 years. And then in 2018, I mean, we've been dying since 2007. And in 2018, we realized we couldn't go on any longer. And so we converted back to a magazine.
What happened in 2018?
Well, we lost a lot of money. We were losing more money every year.
From doing 2 publications a month?
No, from doing a weekly. The bottom fell out of the newspaper business.
Oh, that just happened to
in 2007. I mean, it just got worse and worse and worse. And,
Yeah,
and the Democrat was having the same problem.
Yes.
They just have deep pockets.
Yes.
So we converted back to the magazine.
To save money.
Not so much to save money, but there is a tactile pleasure in opening a glossy magazine with all the photography and everything.
Absolutely.
It sets you apart from the newspaper. That wasn't going to save us, but it certainly got us back into the black. And then we started, we had very, very big website, very aggressive, and Max had led that. And we started selling we asked people, we said, look, we'd like you to buy an online subscription. We had a paywall, but we would like you to buy an online subscription that will support the Times, and we will use that to support our editorial department. And so today we've got 4,116 paid subscribers to our website that pays basically for the editorial staff. It's $500,000. And that has saved us. And then with Walker, who has done our philanthropy, he's done a fabulous job. And so we've got all these we've basically reinvented the publishing business model that's been broken for a decade or more. And so.
Is this one right here? If you find it in one of your boxes, is it free or are we giving quarters still?
It's free.
So you quit doing quarters in the boxes?
I was losing money. Yeah, it wasn't much quarters, but when we were selling subscriptions, the postage is so expensive.
Yeah.
And then the direct mail efforts to sell subscriptions is so expensive, you actually lost money. But we finally just said, and it was really hard for us. We were just wedded to the idea of paid circulation. But all I want people to do is make a buying decision. I want you to go walk over there. I'm not going to mail it to your home without you asking.
Yeah.
I want you to get up, walk over there at the restaurant and pick up a copy of the Times because you want to read it. I don't care if you give me a quarter or not. I just want you to read the thing and see my advertisers.
Oh.
And then maybe you go to our website and you start seeing all this breaking news that's not in the monthly magazine. You go, I like what these guys are doing. I want to support them. And we go from there.
So the new Camelot is
That's
when...
what I did. I'm a subscriber online. Yeah.
Thank you.
You did that same thing? You picked it up and decided you wanted to...
I mean, it was really... It's funny. I didn't realize I was doing it, but what you just described is exactly what I did. I mean, it was like, this is such a beautiful magazine. I really want to support this like local newspaper because I have a subscription to the New York Times. You know, they don't need my money. And like, and yeah, it ended up being this. I went to the website. I was seeing you guys on Facebook too. I was seeing the breaking news that was coming in every day, and it was so valuable to me on a local level that I didn't get because I don't have a DemGaz subscription. And it was, I mean, just all fell into place. And then I got my subscription.
And we've been able to get people like Matt Campbell, Blue Hog Report, who he broke the story on the lectern, the governor's lectern.
Oh, yeah.
Lectern gate.
The $19,000 lectern. You know, we've been able to get people like Matt and others. I mean, Benji, Hardy, just a lot of great people. Austin Gelder, our editor-in-chief. And we've been able to get these people, and we've been able to pay them thanks to our subscriptions and thanks to the philanthropy.
So the abortion was in the paper in the 90s, went back to the Supreme Court, stayed in place. Again, the more things change, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So now we're back talking about abortions. The gay marriage was on the ballot, pray away the gay. I don't know when they start letting you get married. Gray, you're gay. When did they start letting you get married?
2015?
Yeah, about 2015.
So this was 2000. They were trying to pray away the gay.
That was when we were in high school.
Max Brantley's blog started in 2004 called the Arkansas Blog. Is he doing that while he's retired?
No, but we've actually Max does contribute to the blog, but we've got we've got 11 people now doing what
Right.
what Max used to do by himself.
You know, when I read that about Max, he started his blog in 2004. Did you know I started my blog in 2004?
No, I did not know that.
I know, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
when they first
They started,
came
yeah.
out. That's exactly right. And then we have the ivory woodpecker, the
Yeah.
North America's largest woodpecker. That seems to be a farce.
Leslie Peacock is an avid bird watcher. She's one of our editors.
She saw it?
No, but she was paddling all through those swamps with these guys
the rest
looking
of
for
us.
it. And
The elusive
ivory bill woodpecker. But
And
who
then you-
knows? It still may be out there.
I don't
I like to
know.
think so.
It's
I
like
still have the
Bigfoot.
license plate.
It's
I'm,
like
I'm
Bigfoot.
hoping. Yeah. It's like Bigfoot. It's a little better than Bigfoot.
A little bit better.
The Huckabees like father like daughter article, and before we got to keep moving on. Paid in Blood was a fascinating one in there about how, I know you don't even know what it is, about how we were the last state to quit selling plasma
Oh, yeah.
that we took from the convicts and shipped it to the United Kingdom and gave them all hepatitis and AIDS and shit.
AIDS. Yeah, yeah.
Whoa.
That was,
What? Right? That was in 2000. The convicts could not make money doing anything other than selling their
plasma.
blood, so they all gave blood to make money, spending money.
Sure.
you know, I've never said this, but back when we were starting, we used to go sell blood. There was a place on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another way to get to
Yeah.
to be able to have
Yeah.
something to eat.
Get a little cash.
Yeah,
little
yeah.
cash.
Well, I hope you didn't give anybody AIDS. All right.
Mom.
I don't think they had it back then. Or if they did, nobody knew about it. All right. This is 2010. Now we're in another decade.
Mm-hmm.
Head coach Bobby Petrino. Love that guy.
That was the best cover, I think. One of the best covers we ever did. We photoshopped the cover, and Bobby's sitting there, and he's ranting and raving, and they photoshopped him with his pants down around his ankles, wearing a polka dotted bloomers, and this is when he got nailed with the woman.
Yeah, on the back of his motorcycle.
On the back
And,
of his
and he's
Yep.
back now, and we're winning again.
Yeah,
that guy
I'm
is a coach. I don't care. He's a good,
Oh, sure,
he is
yeah.
a good offensive, offensive coach.
I'm not taking anything away from him.
No, me either. That's between him and his wife. I don't
Yeah,
care.
right.
Anyway, and then Seeing Red, the Republican takeover. I was kind of never thought about this till I was talking to my daughter. And I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but I was like, when did we go from such a blue state to such a red state? And she said,
After
so what's your
Obama.
opinion?
Well, we were the last Southern state to go red, and I always kind of took some pride in that because historically Arkansas, we've had terrible lynchings and a lot of stuff has gone on, but we were more of we were a border state. We were right on the edge of the West. We were never that deep South,
Yeah.
Mississippi, Alabama. So I always gave us some credit for that. But then after Obama got elected, 2000, the next election cycle 2 years later, I think everyone got blown out except Bibi. And then when Bibi retired, that was it. So
Well, she brought up something that I'd never thought about. She brought up that after Kenneth Starr and Whitewater, and that they put so many people in jail for odd stuff, or they spent so much time defending themselves. I interviewed Susan McDougal,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how many people spent their whole life savings to defend themselves against small, made-up stuff.
Well, they wanted her to, she says to make up a story about Clinton, and if she didn't, then they were going to.
They ruined her life.
persecute her, yeah.
They ruined her husband's life. But they ruined a lot of people's lives. It was really interesting. And so I wondered if that is one of the reasons that the Democrats lost favor was because all the Democrats with money were out of money.
No, I think.
You don't think so?
No, I think Clinton still had a lot of support. I was kind of amazed that Hillary did not carry Arkansas, but that was a different era.
Yeah, I agree. This is a great place to take a break. We're going to wind up our last break. We're going to wind up the show with Arkansas Times publisher and founder, Mr. Alan Leveritt. We'll be right back.
Today at flagandbanner.com, we're installing large mesh banners on our new edition. Mesh banners provide protection from the wind and rain, but are more durable in high wind areas. Before you drill into your building, call the experts for high-quality banners and professional installation.
Look at all that gray hair. He's definitely an expert. Flagandbanner.com has been helping our customers for over 45 years. For advice on functional and beautiful banners, call flagandbanner.com.
We're speaking today with Arkansas Times founder, Mr. Alan Leveritt, who's celebrating the paper's the magazine's 50 years in business. Today, you deal with advertising. Oh, you know what we didn't talk about? Rehoming.
Oh, yeah.
You busted that story.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
This is a good story.
What was that guy's name?
Just Representative Justin Harris and his wife, Marcia.
Yeah, God, it was terrible.
It was terrible. So we don't have a lot of time in this interview, but if anybody wants to know about rehoming, you got laws changed for rehoming. Go back to, like I said, our earlier interview. You tell a long, really good story about your investigative reporting.
It's a religiously inspired daycare center that got a lot of state money, and they could teach the Bible, and then he wound up rehoming his kids to a pedophile. So, yeah.
Whoa.
Yes. It was breaking news. It was picked up nationally. They were holding up the Arkansas Times on national TV and saying, this guy has just busted. And you can't do this anymore, but if you adopt some kids and you don't like them, you can rehome them without telling the state or anybody.
But you can't do that now.
But you can't do that now because of you.
Yeah, yeah.
No. All right. Today you deal with advertising boycotts I just want to stop again and say, that is a really good, in-depth story on our last episode, if anybody wants to go hear it. But today you deal with advertising boycotts from state governments due to your outspoken reportive and investigating. So to combat the loss in revenue, you have once again outside the box and asked for donations that we talked about it.
Right.
So tell us again how you do it. You go to the Arkansas.
Go to the Arkansas Community Foundation, and you tell them you want to make a donation and you want to tag it for the Arkansas Times, and they're just great.
And you can even do it for, like we said, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette if you want to.
If you want to, yeah. There's a lot of different things. And then, or if you want a subscription to the Arkansas Times, it's $110 a year. It's a heck of it really helps us.
Is that all?
Yeah, baby. It's worth it.
Yeah. And but I mean, like you say, you got 4,000 of them and $120. That's a lot of money.
Well, for anybody that wants to move out of Arkansas, it's a good way to stay informed too about what's going on.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of, but we've got a huge website. We've got over 500,000 unique visitors a month to our website now, and that's because we've put all this money in to grow in the editorial staff, and then they have grown the story content of the website with all this breaking news, and that's attracted more and more people to the website, and that's attracted more advertisers to the website. So it's a virtuous cycle, but it's sort of counterintuitive. You don't go spending all your money on writers typically, but we did, and it's worked. So, but we did it with new money coming from philanthropy.
Good for you. I think writers are worried about losing their jobs and stuff. You know, we talked about also one time about how you can trust the written publications because they have to hold themselves accountable.
They're curated. They have, you know who the people are. You know that there's an editor sitting there asking questions of the writer and everything. I mean, my brother is a big Trumper. He lives down in Mobile, Alabama, and he sends me these crazy websites that they're probably done in China or something. And I just always say, Brian, just go read a newspaper. Read a newspaper.
But according to your guy with Walker, how many majority of people get their news from
TikTok?
Yeah.
Or these crazy websites.
Which is not curated at all.
Yeah, no. There was one website I saw, the guy, it looks like CBS News. I mean, it's a beautiful news
studio.
Center. Yeah, he's interviewing people. And I go in there and he says, so you saw Jesus last Tuesday? Yeah, I saw Jesus last. Well, what did Jesus say? Well, Jesus said that we've got to get behind a godly candidate. And we talked for about an hour. And he said that Donald Trump was the man that we needed, that was going to carry forth the kingdom on earth or whatever. And it was just like,
how many viewers does he have?
I don't know, but I mean, it got sent to me and by my brother. And it's just like, golly, straight face. He talked to Jesus on Tuesday in person.
Well, this is what they talk about when they talk about Gen Z's ability to decipher the information that they're getting is like, you have to look past the smoke and mirrors and the good production quality and like
excellent production.
Yeah. And really be critical about who it is and where they're coming from and what they're talking about. And yeah.
Are we going to get there, Alan? Do you have faith that the pendulum's going to swing back to good curated news again? Or is it just going to be you find what you want to hear and you watch it and you get yourself worked up?
When I was in college and I was a conservative, everything was liberal. A conservative could hardly get a date.
That's right.
On a college campus, and you see how it's swung. And I think the world swings back and forth. Yeah. It's just you hope at some point it doesn't swing so far right that you wind up, like in Hungary or what almost happened in Poland, where you basically lose your democracy to the authoritarian right. And I'm not including real conservatives when I'm talking about the authoritarian right. I'm talking about Donald Trump, not Liz Cheney. And I think our governor and much of our legislature is very much aligned now with that authoritarian.
So
right.
if it swings too much liberal, what's the downside of that? Because it can do that too.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen that in a while. The liberals have never tried to derail the Constitution. They've never attacked the Capitol to keep an election from being certified. Maybe some of them would if they could. I don't know. But that's not my problem right now. It's what I'm concerned about is the authoritarian right, the Christian nationalist, the white Christian nationalist, and the people who really are not interested in the Constitution. They're not interested in separation of church and state.
If you could tell our listeners one thing, what would it be? This is your last question.
I have no idea.
Subscribe to the Times.
How about this? Subscribe to the
Subscribe
Times.
to the Times, yeah. ArcTimes.com.
Or go vote.
Or go vote.
There
Absolutely.
you go.
And if you're and if you're not registered, I think there's still a couple of days left.
I don't know.
Are we past that?
Well, by the time this airs, for sure.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
yeah.
that
We're
is
not
too
live.
late for that.
We're not live.
Okay.
We've been speaking today with Arkansas Times founder and publisher, Mr. Alan Leveritt. Thank you.
We have a desk set for you downstairs.
We have a beautiful Arkansas flag and U.S. flag. Did you live anywhere else besides Arkansas?
We spent 6 years in Miami, Florida when I was a kid.
Well, it doesn't look the same anymore. Have you been down there in a long time?
I have.
It's a lot different from when you were a kid.
Well, it's, when I went back, we loved it down there.
Yeah.
We missed Arkansas. We wanted to get back. But I was down there, a couple of years ago, and I enjoyed it still.
Well, I know you enjoyed it, but it's not the same.
It's probably nothing's the same.
Well, that's the truth.
Yeah.
That is absolutely the truth. That is so evident by your 50-year anniversary edition. Nothing is the same, and yet it still is.
Still Arkansas.
All right. Thank you, Alan. We got you a U.S., Arkansas, and Florida flag for a desk set for you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. This show was recorded in the historical Taborian Hall in downtown Little Rock, Arkansas, and made possible by the good works of flagandbanner.com, Mr. Tom Wood, our audio engineer, Mr. Jonathan Hankins, our videographer, my daughter, Miss Megan Pittman, the production manager, and my co-host, Mr. Grady McCoy IV, a.k.a. Gray, Son Gray. To our listeners, we would like to thank you for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. For more of Kerry's interviews, click on either video on the right of the screen. And as always, thank you for watching.